SRA 421 Session 5.2.1 Counterintelligence Strategy, Operations, and Tradecraft. In this session, the first of two we will do on these topics, we'll look at counterintelligence operations. We'll take a very quick look at operations against human intelligence, which is often the most common type of counterintelligence operations. We'll say a word or two about support of military operations and then conclude with the topic of growing importance, cyber counterintelligence. We will begin with a look at counterintelligence operations against human intelligence, or HUMINT. The reason why this is important is that most, if not all, but certainly a good percentage of the hostile collection efforts directed at the United States involve HUMINT. In fact, in contrast to the United States, most foreign intelligence services base their collection operations heavily, if not exclusively, on HUMINT. It's necessarily the bread and butter of our adversaries and indeed some of our friends, to say nothing of other non-state groups such as terrorist groups. So while foreign adversaries don't have the chance to field costly and technologically demanding technical collection operations the way we do, but they can organize, train, equip, sustain, and deploy significant numbers of case officers, agents, spies, saboteurs, and they do. In fact, foreign emphasis on human collectors is the single most distinctive feature or asymmetry in modern intelligence structures, and it has profound implications for U.S. counterintelligence operations. Recall that in contrast to most of the world's other services, we've historically placed a much greater emphasis on sophisticated technical means than on human channels. In this history, the United States intelligence is in fact distinctive. But the rest of the world, with some exceptions, relies heavily on HUMINT, and therefore counterintelligence operations directed at HUMINT take on an added importance. This heavy reliance on HUMINT on the part of much of the world's intel services affects every phase of their intelligence activity, from operational strategy, evaluating the reliability of information obtained, its importance to the various policymakers. It also affects relative strengths and vulnerabilities. If HUMINT is in fact the eyes and ears of foreign leaders, purposefully shaping the reporting they receive through HUMINT channels can be a formidable influence on their actions. This is the essence of the exploitative type of counterintelligence, as we have discussed previously. And in this context, the Foreign Intelligence Service becomes an even more attractive target for penetration, to use the offensive or exploitative type of counterintelligence. So ideally, you'd want to exploit, you'd want to penetrate, get inside the Foreign Service and turn their powers against them, obviously. But even in the absence of such possibilities for exploitation, counterintelligence against HUMINT still has to go beyond identifying and prosecuting or kicking out the hostile agents. That's, of course, the first step as part of the defensive measures. But there are some more things you have to do in the human intelligence context. First is to determine why the hostile spy went after specific information. Was it just a target of opportunity, or is it part of some broader strategy on the part of the hostile service? If it's the latter, it may shed light on the broader goals of that service. And then in addition to determining the whys, you really have to spend some time determining what damage was done, how much was lost, where are the vulnerabilities. The purpose is to determine exactly what information has been compromised. In many cases, cooperation of the agents or spies who were captured has been useful. In some of the cases of our insider spies and intelligence breaches, such as the Hansen case and others, deals were made with the perpetrator in order to get that individual to give a fair and full assessment of exactly what had been compromised. Obviously, there are limits to the extent to which you can trust these people, but it's considered so important that deals are often made. We'll come back to this a little bit when we look at the Hansen case as a case study. For now, let's turn briefly to counterintelligence support of military operations. Now, the topic of military intelligence and denial and deception has come up already in the course of the semester. And indeed, this element of counterintelligence borders on denial and deception, which is, of course, the subject of other coursework here in IST. But it's clear to say that offensive counterintelligence operations have, in fact, played a key role in supporting military operations. Best, the classic example in history is the Allied landing at Normandy in June 1944 during World War II. The Allies certainly could not begin to hope to hide the fact that they intended a cross-channel invasion across the English Channel from England to France. But through the use of elaborate decoys and ruses, misleading communications, very well done double agent operations, and a host of other inventive measures, they led the Nazis to believe that the landing site would be at the narrowest point of the English Channel, a place called the Pas de Calais. And the surprise, of course, was total, and it was a huge success. So this is perhaps the classic example of how counterintelligence operations, including blending into denial and deception, can have decisive effects and impacts in support of military operations. That, of course, does not mean that counterintelligence operations don't apply in peacetime. As we've seen, they do. The same fundamental principles apply. In fact, successful counterintelligence operations can provide the means for influencing decisions or behaviors that may spell the difference between favorable or unfavorable outcomes in world events short of warfare. So the ability to use counterintelligence operations to exploit and to manipulate world events. The key to success in this type of counterintelligence, like everything else, is playing to one's own strengths or to the adversary's vulnerabilities. And the U.S. strengths, of course, are a lot of things, a pretty big budget, unmatched technology, and clearly a global footprint, a global presence. Let's conclude this particular presentation with a look at cyber counterintelligence. Of course, we've looked at cyber intelligence, collection means and other technical means in the context of the semester. This is now, of course, counterintelligence. This refers generally to a whole range of measures to identify and mitigate or eliminate threats to a nation's cybersecurity, including threats to critical cyber infrastructure, which is increasingly important, and against technical efforts by hostile actors to collect intelligence. So, when we said that counterintelligence is most often applied to human attempts to collect on you, that doesn't mean it's exclusive. There are, of course, hostile actors and others who have at least some type of technical capability. And depending on the nature of that technical capability, if it blends into the cyber realm, the measures taken against that to counter that could be considered cyber counterintelligence. And these threats include cyber espionage, attempts at cyber terrorism, and even cyber crime. Now, another way to look at cyber counterintelligence would be the use of information and computer technology to combat the more traditional hostile intelligence threats. So if you're using in some way or for various reasons computers in your counterintelligence efforts against old-fashioned human intelligence, this could also count as cyber counterintelligence. As we have seen elsewhere in this course, there is an official U.S. government definition, or more than one, of cyber counterintelligence. In the United States government-wide Cyber Counterintelligence Plan of 2008, it's referred to as counterintelligence by any means, where a significant target or tool, keywords, target or tool of the adversarial activity is a computer, computer network, processor controller, or information, and so on. The U.S. Department of Defense has defined cyber counterintelligence as measures to identify, penetrate, or neutralize foreign operations that use cyber means as the primary tradecraft methodology, as well as foreign intelligence service collection efforts that use traditional means, but aimed at gauging cyber capabilities and intentions. So this is basically, as you can see, the various ways the U.S. government looks at the concept, or how it defines cyber counterintelligence. Just as cyber operations generally are becoming more and more important in our digital age world, the threat of hostile cyber intelligence activities is growing. In the report to Congress on foreign economic collection and industrial espionage, it's a little bit dated now, 2009 to 2011, the US government concluded that cyber tools have in fact enhanced the economic espionage threat, and the judgment of the intelligence community was that the use of such tools, that is, cyber tools, was already a threat as of 2011, was already a threat more than that of traditional espionage methods, with the targets being, of course, sensitive US economic information and technology, being targeted by private companies as well, intelligence services, academic and research institutions, and citizens of dozens of countries. The main targets of cyber espionage are probably quite obvious, but let's state them just the same. First and foremost, all types of information and communications technology, which really are the backbone of nearly every other technology. Business information that pertains to supplies of scarce natural resources, or that may provide foreign actors an edge in negotiations with U.S. businesses or the government. Certainly military technologies, marine systems, unmanned aerial vehicles, and other aeronautic technologies. And then a whole host of civilian and dual-use technologies in sectors likely to experience continued fast growth, such as clean energy and healthcare, pharmaceuticals. Note once again that some of these cyber threats in terms of hostile intelligence are not exclusively those carried out by nation states. Could be private businesses working perhaps in tandem with their countries and so on. Of course, cyber espionage can also be aimed at United States government information systems themselves, particularly United States classified data. Now, there are three main sort of protocols that route classified and sensitive information around and among U.S. government agencies: the NIPRNet, CIPRNet, and JWICS. NIPRNet actually does not rise to the level of classified, but it is considered what we call SBU, sensitive but unclassified information. CIPRNet is very widely used. That's up to the secret level, the Secret Internet Protocol Router, which is used for passing a lot of tactical operational level, but operational information, but only up to the secret level. Those of you who are familiar with the WikiLeaks incident probably are aware that the individual who was charged with leaking that information, by and large, only had access up to the CIPRNet level, and therefore most of the information that was leaked remained at secret or below. The biggest prize, of course, would be JWICS, the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communications System. This is now used to exchange information at the top secret level, and indeed top secret, beyond top secret, to special compartmented information, and that's worldwide. But in the wake of WikiLeaks and also the security breach that was attributed to Edward Snowden, the number of people who have access to JWICS has been reduced considerably. And also, other technical means have been put in place, have been beefed up in order to protect these systems. But they clearly also are targets. Having said that we've beefed up our systems, in fact, the United States has been building an enhanced cyber counterintelligence capacity over the past several years. The ongoing efforts are ongoing. One of the principal components is supposed to be this government-wide cyber counterintelligence plan that's been outlined in the U.S. National Cybersecurity Initiative, another one of these strategy documents we have. Additionally, a variety of individual agencies within the USIC have been building cyber counterintelligence capacity consistent with their specific missions. Department of Energy for protection of critical energy infrastructure, and so on. Department of Transportation for protection of airlines and things like that. Not much probably to say about these because, as should be not surprising to you all, many of the details of these various U.S. cyber counterintelligence activities, operations, and plans are in fact classified. But the takeaway for the purposes of this course is that they exist and they are growing.